The kitchen at Château Laurent was a temple of culinary perfection, or so Chef Laurent Beaumont wanted everyone to believe. Crystal Morrison had worked the hotline at Château Laurent for 3 years, creating dishes that earned the restaurant its reputation, while Laurent took credit during his Food Network appearances and Instagram posts with 2 million followers. On that Tuesday night in March 2015, the kitchen was slammed. Reservation book completely full, private party in the wine room, food critics at table 12. Laurent was in his element, barking orders, throwing pans, playing the temperamental genius chef for the cameras that followed him everywhere since his reality show Beaumont's Kitchen made him a household name. Crystal was executing a duck confit that she'd perfected over months of testing. Laurent's recipe was good, but she'd discovered that adding star anise to the fat and adjusting the temperature created something transcendent. The modification was subtle, but the results were remarkable. "Order up duck confit." Crystal placed the plate under the heat lamp. Laurent grabbed it, examined it with his usual theatrical flair, then froze. He tasted a small piece, his expression shifting from curiosity to something darker. "What did you do to this?" "I adjusted the..." "I didn't ask for adjustments. I asked for my recipe, my dish, not some line cook's experiment." The kitchen went silent. Cameras kept rolling. This would make great television. Crystal kept her voice steady. "Chef, I've been making small modifications that have been improving." "Improving?" Laurent's voice rose. "You think you can improve my cooking? I trained in Paris under Michel Blanc. I have a James Beard Award. You are a line cook who went to community college culinary school. You don't improve my recipes. You execute them exactly as I instruct." "But chef, if you taste it..." "I don't need to taste it. I need you to understand your place in my kitchen." Laurent grabbed the plate and dumped it in the trash. "Start over. Follow the recipe." Crystal bit back her response. She'd been here before, her ideas dismissed, her skills downplayed, her contributions erased, while Laurent posted photos of dishes she'd created with captions about his innovative techniques. She started the duck again, exactly to Laurent's specifications, perfectly executed, technically flawless, and notably inferior to what she'd created before. 2 weeks later, the New York Times food critic wrote a review that changed everything. "Château Laurent rests on its laurels," the review began. "Once innovative, now predictable. The duck confit, a signature dish, was competently prepared but lacked the magic that made this establishment a destination. One wonders if Chef Beaumont's television commitments have distracted from the kitchen that made his name." Laurent exploded. He fired 2 sous chefs, screamed at the front-of-house staff, and called an emergency kitchen meeting. "We're going back to basics," he announced. "Excellence in every dish, no shortcuts, no modifications, no one deviates from my recipes." He looked directly at Crystal. "Some of you think you're smarter than the system. Think you can improve perfection. That kind of arrogance is why we got a mediocre review." Crystal said nothing, but her friend Marcus, another line cook, spoke up. "Chef, Crystal's modifications on the duck have been consistently praised by customers. Maybe you should shut up and cook." Laurent stepped closer to Marcus. "Or maybe you should find another kitchen. Same goes for anyone who thinks they know better than me." The threat was clear. Crystal and Marcus exchanged glances but stayed silent. For the next month, Crystal cooked exactly to Laurent's specifications. No modifications, no improvements, no creativity, just mechanical execution of recipes that were slowly becoming dated as other restaurants innovated. Then came the night that ended everything. A table of 8 included a food blogger with 500,000 followers. Laurent was at another restaurant, a guest appearance for his TV show, so the kitchen was Crystal's responsibility as acting sous chef. She made a decision. Just for this one table, she'd prepare dishes the way she knew they should be made. The duck confit with star anise, the bouillabaisse with her adjusted spice blend, the chocolate torte with her technique that created a texture Laurent could never achieve. The table loved it. They posted photos, raved about the experience, tagged Château Laurent in posts about the return to form and rediscovered magic. Laurent saw the posts. He checked the kitchen logs. He saw that Crystal had been running the line that night. The next day, she was called to his office. "You deliberately disobeyed my instructions." Laurent didn't yell this time. His voice was cold, controlled. "You cooked your versions of my dishes. You undermined my authority in my own kitchen. The customers loved it. The posts are bringing in new reservations. I was trying to help. You were trying to show me up, to prove you're better than me." Laurent leaned forward. "Let me make something very clear, Crystal. You are not better than me. You will never be better than me. You are a line cook, a position that requires following orders, not creative thinking. I've been cooking here for 3 years. I've created half the specials you claim as yours. I've fixed your mistakes and improved your recipes. Those food bloggers weren't praising you last night. They were praising my cooking." The words hung in the air. Laurent's face went purple. "You're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out." "You can't fire me for cooking well. I can fire you for insubordination, for deliberately violating direct orders, for creating a hostile work environment." Laurent pulled out a document. "Sign this non-compete. It states you won't work in any restaurant within 50 miles for 2 years. You won't disparage Château Laurent or me personally, and you acknowledge that all recipes and techniques you learned here are my intellectual property." "That's not legal. My lawyers think it is. Sign it, or I'll make sure you never work in a professional kitchen again. I have friends at every major restaurant in this city. I'll blacklist you so completely you'll be lucky to get a job at McDonald's." Crystal stared at the document. She thought about fighting it, getting a lawyer, standing up for herself. But she had $3,000 in savings and rent due next week. Laurent had millions and a legal team on retainer. She signed. Security escorted her out through the back door like a criminal. 3 years of work, innovation, and dedication ended with a cardboard box of her knives and a non-compete that would cripple her career. Marcus caught her in the parking lot. "Crystal, I'm so sorry. This is wrong. It's done." Crystal loaded her knives into her old Honda. He won. That's how this works. People like Laurent always win. "What will you do?" Crystal looked back at Château Laurent's kitchen, the place where she'd poured her heart into food that Laurent claimed as his own, where her talent had been exploited and her contributions erased. "I don't know yet," she lied. Because she did know. She knew exactly what she would do. It would take time, planning, and patience. But Laurent Beaumont had made a critical mistake when he fired her. He'd freed her to become his worst nightmare. 8 years. That's how long Crystal would work, save, plan, and prepare. And when she finally opened her restaurant, 2 blocks from Château Laurent, it wouldn't just compete with his establishment, it would destroy it. The first year after being fired was survival. Crystal worked 3 jobs: morning shift at a hotel breakfast buffet, afternoon catering gigs, night shifts doing meal prep for a corporate cafeteria. None of it was creative. All of it paid bills while she figured out her next move. The non-compete kept her out of any real restaurant for 2 years. Laurent had made sure of that, even calling contacts to ensure Crystal stayed blacklisted. But he'd underestimated her. She didn't need his world to build her own. She started with a food truck in 2016. Nothing fancy, just Morrison's Kitchen, parked outside office buildings during lunch, serving elevated comfort food. Her fried chicken sandwich wasn't just good, it was legendary. Word spread through food blogs and Instagram. Lines formed before she even opened the service window. The food truck grossed $200,000 the first year. Crystal lived on $25,000, saved everything else. She worked alone, cooking, serving, cleaning, doing everything herself. Every dollar saved was another step toward the goal she'd been planning since the day Laurent fired her. By 2018, she had $300,000 saved in a business plan that would make Laurent Beaumont regret every dismissive word he'd ever spoken. Crystal found the perfect location. A gorgeous corner space on 5th Street, 2 blocks from Château Laurent. The building had been a bank, high ceilings, marble floors, massive windows. It was also expensive as hell. The landlord laughed when she made her offer. "You're a food truck operator trying to lease a space that costs $15,000 a month?" "I'm a chef trying to open the restaurant that will define this city's food scene," Crystal corrected. and I have first and last month's rent plus a security deposit in cash." She got the lease. The next 6 months were brutal. Crystal designed every element of the space herself: the open kitchen where diners could watch her cook, the intimate 40-seat dining room, the bar showcasing craft cocktails that would pair with her food. She maxed out credit cards, took a small business loan, and poured every penny she had into the build-out. Marcus left Château Laurent to join her as sous chef. "Laurent's lost it," he told her. "The kitchen's a nightmare. He's barely there anymore, always flying to LA for TV stuff. The food's gotten worse. We've had 3 bad reviews in 6 months." "Good," Crystal said simply. "Let it burn." She named her restaurant Crystalline, a play on her name and a statement about clarity of vision and purpose. The food would be French-inspired soul food fusion, taking Laurent's pretentious haute cuisine and making it soulful, honest, accessible, and undeniably better. The duck confit that Laurent had thrown in the trash 7 years ago? That was menu item number 1, prepared exactly the way Crystal had always known it should be. Opening night was April 15th, 2019. Crystal had invited every food critic, blogger, and influencer in the city. She'd sent a special invitation to Laurent Beaumont. He didn't come, but his spies did, 2 of his remaining sous chefs there to report back. Crystal didn't care. She cooked the way she'd always wanted to, with skill, creativity, passion, and the absolute certainty that her food was better than anything Laurent had ever created. The critics agreed. "Crystalline is a revelation," wrote the New York Times food critic. Chef Crystal Morrison takes classical French technique and infuses it with soul, creating dishes that are simultaneously sophisticated and deeply comforting. The duck confit alone is worth the pilgrimage, a perfect marriage of crispy skin and tender meat with unexpected notes of star anise that haunt you long after the last bite. Bon Appetit called it the most exciting new restaurant in America. Food and Wine put Crystal on their best new chefs list. The Michelin inspectors came 3 times in the first 6 months. In October 2019, Crystalline earned its first Michelin star. Château Laurent lost its star the same year. The contrast was devastating for Laurent. Every article about Crystalline's success mentioned that Chef Morrison had once worked at Château Laurent. Food writers started calling restaurants to hear kitchen gossip. The story emerged. Laurent had fired his most talented cook for daring to improve his recipes. Laurent Beaumont's greatest culinary achievement, wrote Eater in a scathing piece, was employing Crystal Morrison. His greatest mistake was firing her. Reservations at Crystalline were booked 3 months out. Reservations at Château Laurent dried up. Laurent's restaurant went from packed every night to half empty on weekends. He tried to fight back. He posted on Instagram about loyalty and original vision. He gave interviews claiming Crystal had stolen his techniques. He even showed up at Crystalline one night, demanding to speak with Crystal. She refused to see him. By 2020, pandemic restrictions devastated the restaurant industry, but Crystal had built something resilient. She pivoted to upscale takeout, selling meal kits that let people recreate her dishes at home. She did virtual cooking classes. She built a community around her food. Laurent's restaurant barely survived. He had to lay off most of his staff and take out emergency loans. His TV show was canceled. His cookbook sales plummeted. The chef who'd once been everywhere was now irrelevant. In 2021, as restaurants reopened, Crystalline came back stronger. Crystal expanded the space, added a private dining room, and hired 3 more line cooks, all of them people of color who'd been overlooked or dismissed by establishments like Château Laurent. She also started writing her own cookbook, Cooking with Soul, Recipes and Reflections from Crystalline. The introduction told her story, including the firing, the struggle, and the deliberate choice to open 2 blocks from the man who'd tried to end her career. "This book," she wrote, "is for everyone who's been told they're not good enough, for everyone whose work was stolen and whose credit was taken, for everyone who was fired for being too talented, too confident, too threatening to fragile egos. Your place is wherever you decide it is, and mine is at the top." The cookbook sold 500,000 copies. Crystal appeared on morning shows, podcast interviews, and magazine covers. She became exactly what Laurent had been: famous, influential, respected. except she'd earned it through actual talent rather than television theatrics. In January 2022, Crystalline earned its second Michelin star. Only 15 black female chefs in America had ever achieved this distinction. Crystal was one of them. The food critic from the New York Times, the same one who'd reviewed Château Laurent back in 2015, wrote, "Crystal Morrison doesn't just cook food, she cooks with purpose, with history, with a point to prove." Every dish at Crystalline tells a story of resilience, excellence, and the triumph of genuine talent over artificial celebrity. Château Laurent, once the pinnacle of this city's dining scene, now feels like a museum to an outdated era. Crystalline is the future. Laurent read the review in his near-empty restaurant. Reservations were down 75%. His best cooks had left. His investors were threatening to pull out. The landlord was discussing lease termination. Everything was falling apart. And 2 blocks away, Crystal Morrison was fully booked for the next 4 months, earning awards, building an empire, and proving every single day that firing her was the worst decision Laurent Beaumont had ever made. But Crystal wasn't satisfied yet. Destroying his reputation wasn't enough. Outperforming his restaurant wasn't enough. She wanted something more personal. She wanted him to come to her, to acknowledge what he'd done, to face the consequences of his arrogance. And in March 2023, she got her opportunity. Château Laurent was for sale. The listing appeared quietly, a premier restaurant space with established reputation available for immediate purchase or lease. The price had dropped 3 times in 2 months. No one was buying. Crystal's lawyer called her. "I can get it for $400,000 below asking. The owners are desperate." "Buy it," Crystal said immediately, "and don't tell them who the buyer is until after closing." 2 weeks later, Crystal Morrison owned Château Laurent, the building where she'd been humiliated, fired, and erased. The kitchen where Laurent had thrown her duck confit in the trash and told her she'd never be good enough. It was hers now. She called Laurent personally to tell him. "Chef Beaumont, this is Crystal Morrison. I wanted to let you know I've purchased Château Laurent. You have 30 days to vacate." The silence on the phone was exquisite. "You... what?" "I own your restaurant now. Well, the building. The restaurant itself is worthless. I'm gutting it and turning it into my second location, Crystalline Maison. We'll serve a refined tasting menu. Michelin's already expressed interest." "You can't do this." "I already did. The sale closed yesterday. I'm texting you the eviction notice right now." Crystal paused. "Oh, and Laurent? That duck confit you threw away 8 years ago? It's the signature dish at Crystalline Maison. I'm calling it the Beaumont, a tribute to the chef who was too insecure to recognize excellence when it was right in front of him." "Crystal, please, I made a mistake. I was wrong to fire you. I was threatened by your talent. Can we talk about this?" "No." Crystal's voice was cold. "You had 8 years to apologize. You chose to blacklist me instead. You chose to claim my work as yours. You chose to try to destroy my career. So now I'm not having a conversation. I'm watching you lose everything exactly like you tried to make me lose everything. I'm begging you, beg someone who cares. You have 30 days. She hung up. The eviction of Château Laurent became food world news. Articles ran with headlines like "Crystal Morrison buys restaurant that fired her" and "Sweet Revenge, how one chef destroyed her former boss." Laurent tried to salvage something. He posted a long Instagram apology, admitting he'd been wrong, claiming he'd learned and grown. It rang hollow. The comment section destroyed him. "Too little too late," read one comment with 5,000 likes. "You didn't learn anything. You just finally lost," wrote another. On the final day before eviction, Laurent came to Crystalline, not to the original location, but to the construction site of Crystalline Maison, the building that used to be his. Crystal was there, reviewing plans with her architect. She saw him through the window, standing on the sidewalk, looking up at his former kingdom. She walked outside. "What do you want, Laurent?" He looked older, broken. The arrogant chef she'd known was gone, replaced by a man who'd lost everything. "I wanted to see it. One last time. It's not yours anymore. It never really was. I made this kitchen great, and you took credit." "I know." His voice was barely a whisper. "I know that now." Crystal, I destroyed my own career because I was too insecure to share credit with someone more talented than me. You were always better, and I couldn't handle it. Is that supposed to make me forgive you? No, I don't deserve forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. The duck, the techniques, the modifications. You were right, and I was too arrogant to admit it. Crystal looked at the man who'd once had the power to fire her, blacklist her, try to end her career. Now he stood in front of her restaurant, her building, with nothing. You're right, she said. You don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm going to give you something anyway. She handed him an envelope. What is this? An invitation. Crystal in Maison opens in 2 months. You're invited to the opening night. Front row seat to watch me succeed in the space where you tried to break me. Crystal smiled. Consider it a graduation. You taught me what kind of chef I never want to be. That lesson was worth something. Laurent opened the envelope, saw the invitation, and for a moment looked like he might cry. Thank you, he managed. Don't thank me. Just show up and watch. That's your punishment, seeing what this place becomes when it's run by someone who actually deserves it. Crystal walked back inside her building, her empire, leaving Laurent standing alone on the sidewalk where he belonged, forgotten, replaced, a cautionary tale about what happens when you mistake arrogance for excellence and try to destroy someone more talented than you. Crystal Morrison had won, completely, utterly, and she was just getting started. Crystal in Maison opened on May 15, 2023. The transformed space was breathtaking. Crystal had kept the bones of the old Château Laurent but stripped away Laurent's pretentious gold leaf and heavy drapes. Now it was light, modern, with an open kitchen where diners could watch her and Marcus work. Course 7, the Beaumont, had the most pointed card. Created March 2015. Original version destroyed before service. Chef Morrison was terminated the following day for insubordination. This dish went on to earn Crystal its first Michelin star. Laurent read each card. His face grew paler with every course. Around him, guests raved about the food. Crystal saw tears on his face during course 9. After dessert, Crystal emerged from the kitchen. The dining room erupted in applause. She nodded graciously, thanked her team, and then walked directly to table 1. Chef Beaumont, did you enjoy your meal? Laurent looked up at her. His eyes were red. Every bite was perfect. Everything I threw away, everything I rejected, it was all perfect, and I was too blind to see it. Yes, you were. Crystal, I need to say something publicly. Laurent stood, his voice shaking. Can I address the room? Crystal gestured permission, curious where this would go. Laurent turned to face the dining room. Conversations died. Everyone watched. My name is Laurent Beaumont. 8 years ago, I owned a restaurant 2 blocks from here. Many of you ate there. Some of you wrote about it. I was successful, famous, arrogant, his voice cracked. And I was a fraud. Whispers rippled through the room. The woman standing next to me, Chef Crystal Morrison, worked in my kitchen for 3 years. She created many of the dishes I took credit for. She improved my recipes, and I punished her for it. She questioned my methods, and I fired her for it. I tried to destroy her career because I was threatened by her talent. Laurent looked at Crystal. Tonight, I ate the most extraordinary meal of my life. Every single dish was something you tried to teach me 8 years ago. Everything I rejected. Everything I was too arrogant and insecure to appreciate. He turned back to the room. I want everyone here to know that my success was built on this woman's talent. And my failure was caused by my own inability to recognize excellence when it was right in front of me. Chef Morrison didn't just surpass me. She proved that character and integrity matter more than fame or ego. The room was silent. Laurent sat down heavily, like the confession had exhausted him. Crystal looked at him for a long moment. She'd imagined this scene countless times. Laurent broken, apologizing, acknowledging what he'd done. She'd thought it would feel triumphant. Instead, she just felt tired. Thank you for saying that, she said quietly, but we both know it doesn't change anything. You destroyed my career because I threatened your ego. I rebuilt it through talent and determination. The lesson here isn't about forgiveness, it's about consequences. She walked back to the kitchen, leaving Laurent at his table, alone with his regrets. 3 months after opening, Crystalline Maison earned its first Michelin star. Combined with the original Crystalline's 2 stars, Crystal Morrison now operated 3 Michelin star restaurants, a feat achieved by fewer than 50 chefs in America. She appeared on the cover of Time magazine, the chef who cooked her way to justice. The article detailed her journey, from community college to line cook to fired employee to food truck owner to 2-restaurant empire. It became one of the most read food stories of the year. Publishing houses competed to sign her memoir. She chose the offer that gave her complete creative control and donated half the advance to a culinary scholarship for people of color. Laurent Beaumont disappeared from public life. His social media went silent. His TV show wasn't renewed. Food industry insiders heard he'd moved to Portland, working as a sous chef at a small neighborhood restaurant, keeping his head down and his mouth shut. Crystal didn't follow his fate closely. She was too busy building her empire. In 2024, she opened Crystalline Bistro, a casual concept serving elevated comfort food at accessible prices. It wasn't about Michelin stars. It was about making excellent food available to everyone, not just people who could afford $200 tasting menus. The line wrapped around the block on opening day. That evening, Crystal stood in the bistro's kitchen, watching her team work. She thought about the day Laurent had fired her, about sleeping on her sister's couch while figuring out what to do next, about the years of doubt and struggle. Marcus appeared beside her. "You good, chef?" "Yeah," Crystal smiled. "I was just thinking about how Laurent thought firing me was the end of my career. He thought he was so powerful that his word could destroy me." He was wrong. He was. But you know what? I'm almost grateful he fired me. If he hadn't, I might still be in his kitchen, creating dishes he'd take credit for, accepting scraps of recognition for work I was doing. Getting fired freed me to become this. She gestured at the bustling kitchen, at the dining room full of happy customers, at the empire she'd built from nothing. "That's a healthy perspective," Marcus said. "It's the truth. Laurent tried to destroy me, but he actually destroyed himself, and I didn't have to do anything except be better than him. Turns out that wasn't very hard." Later that night, after service ended, Crystal sat in her office reviewing the day's numbers. 3 restaurants, all profitable, all critically acclaimed, all hers. On the wall hung framed reviews, awards, and her Michelin stars. And tucked in her desk drawer, never displayed but never forgotten, was the termination letter from Château Laurent. She kept it as a reminder of where she'd come from, of what she'd overcome, of what happened when you underestimated someone because of their background, their race, or their gender. Laurent had thought he was firing a line cook. He'd actually freed his most dangerous competitor. Her phone buzzed. An email from the James Beard Foundation. Crystal Morrison had been nominated for Best Chef in America. She smiled. Laurent had won that award back in 2012, back when he was still relevant, still respected, still stealing credit for other people's work. If she won, she'd be the first black woman to receive it. The irony was delicious. 6 months later, Crystal won the James Beard Award. She accepted it wearing a chef's coat embroidered with Crystalline on one side and Morrison on the other. Her name, her restaurants, her success. In her acceptance speech, she thanked her team, her family, and everyone who'd supported her. She didn't mention Laurent by name, but everyone knew who she was talking about when she said, "This award is for everyone who's been told they're not good enough, for everyone whose work was stolen, for everyone who was fired for being too talented, too confident, too threatening to fragile egos. They tried to end my career. Instead, they freed me to build an empire. Thank you for recognizing that talent doesn't care about your resume or your connections. It just cares about the work." The crowd stood and applauded. Somewhere, Laurent Beaumont was probably watching. Crystal hoped he was. She hoped he saw exactly what she'd become without him. She hoped he understood that firing her wasn't his biggest mistake. His biggest mistake was thinking she'd stay down. Crystal Morrison had risen, not just to success, but to dominance. 3 restaurants, multiple Michelin stars, a James Beard Award, a memoir in the works, a culinary empire built on talent, determination, and the refusal to accept anyone else's limitations. Laurent had tried to teach her to know her place. Instead, she taught him that her place was at the very top, and his place was watching from the bottom, living with the knowledge that he'd had greatness working in his kitchen and thrown it away because he was too small to share the spotlight. That was the real revenge. Not destroying him, though she'd done that too. The real revenge was succeeding so completely, so undeniably, so brilliantly that history would remember Laurent Beaumont for only one thing: he was the fool who fired Crystal Morrison.